Mansfield Downtown Partnership Board of Directors meeting to order. We appreciate everyone's flexibility today as we shifted to hybrid. And we appreciate everyone accommodating that and being able to join us here today. We obviously have some new faces among our board, and I think it would, if we could briefly go through, I'll call out a name, and if you could just briefly introduce yourself, we'll do that with everybody here so we can all get to know ourselves. So I'm Kyle Muncie, I'm the president of the board, and I'm the director of brand partnerships and trademark management at UConn, and I'm a UConn appointee to the board. Ron?
Yeah, I'm Ron Shuren. I've been in town for 25 years. I'm a member of the political science faculty at UConn, also a member of the Mansfield Town Council. And I've been following the partnership from the inception.
Louis?
I'm Louis Goffinay. I'm back to classroom teaching, so I'm actually at my middle school classroom now. So I'll be teaching 7th grade at the middle school, and I also work part-time at Parks and Rec in town.
Colby?
I'm Colby Trembley. I'm a senior at the University of Connecticut pursuing elementary education, and I am the UConn student representative.
Brian?
My name is Brian Coleman. I am a local businessman here in town. I'm also a member of the town council along with Ron Shuren, and I welcome all the new members of the board.
Frank?
Frank Gifford. I'm a UConn representative on the board. I work at the UConn Foundation, but also a town member and a family that's grown up here too.
Steve?
Hi, Steve Green. I'm a lifelong town resident. Is that me? Anyway, sorry, lifelong town resident, member of the Economic Development Commission and Mansfield Downtown Partnership, and excited to meet the new people. So thanks for joining.
Ryan?
Ryan Aylesworth, Mansfield's town manager for closing in on 2 years.
Diana?
Hi, everybody. I'm Diana Peltier. I'm an emeritus board member. I was the president previous to Kyle, and I served a 6-year term on the partnership board. I live in town. I'm recently retired from the Mansfield Elementary School Southeast. And my children have grown up and gone through all the schools, and we've been following the downtown partnership since its inception.
Rachel?
I'm Rachel Goldberg. I'm a junior at UConn and an English major, and I am a student representative on the board.
Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily Wicks. I'm the manager of operations and collections at the Ballard Institute and Museum of Puppetry in downtown Stores, and I'm also the chair of the Celebrate Mansfield Committee.
Sean?
Hey everyone, I'm Sean Vasington. I'm also a university appointee at UConn. I'm the director of site planning and university landscape architect. I'm also a town resident.
Mario?
Hey everybody, good afternoon. My name is Mario Conjura. I'm vice president at People's United here at Division of M&T, also a resident of Mansfield, and have been on the board for quite some time, and look forward to seeing everybody.
I will run through the staff. Cynthia?
I think I know everybody. I'm Cynthia Van Selm. I'm the director of the Mansfield Downtown Partnership. I've been here 20 years.
Josh?
My name is Josh. I am the administrative assistant of the Downtown Partnership since March of this year. Resident of Stores since I was 1.5 and graduated UConn in 2019 with a double major in English and communication.
Denise?
My name is Denise Kegler. I'm the event coordinator for the Downtown Partnership, and I've been with the organization since 2019, and I've lived in the community since 2020.
And Kathleen?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Patterson. I'm the senior communications manager for the partnership. I've worked here since 2007 and have been a Mansfield resident since 2003.
fantastic. And I know everybody knows we have our friends from Street Sense here as well. They'll have plenty of time to introduce themselves and show us what they've got put together. So thank you everybody for taking the time. We certainly welcome the new members and certainly look forward to being in person as soon as possible. Cynthia, do we have any? I know that we had a little meeting shift, but would we have any public comment that was submitted?
No, we haven't received any, and I know Kathleen's in the town council chambers, and I don't think she has anybody with her there.
Are you by yourself, Kathleen?
I'm all alone.
Fantastic. Okay, just the way we like it. Excellent. Okay, well, let's move into sort of the meatiest part of our agenda here today, and that'll be the downtown stores. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna jump real quick, and you should have in your packet the minutes from our special meeting from June 1st, and I want to hit those quickly to get an approval. That way, if anybody does have to leave at any point here, we can do that while we're here. So the minutes are in your packet. If you would please take a minute to peruse them, and I'm happy to take a motion to approve them.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the June 1st board meeting.
Can I have a second? Steve? All in favor? Any opposed? Any
I
abstentions?
abstain. I wasn't here for that meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Now we'll get into the good stuff. So downtown stores strategic action plan, check in with Street Sense. Before we turn it over to Larissa and Joe, myself and Sean and Steve are going to give a remarkably brief update on our working groups work to this point. Obviously, many of you are part of those working groups. So my working group is the Sustainable Funding Working Group. Our focus, again, I think has been in the short term, our focus has been, we're obviously we have specific revenue sources that fund the partnership and its activities on an annual basis. The biggest of those being the contributions from the town and from the university. We've had some success in conversations with the property owners in securing what we hope will be growing donations or contributions from them on a regular basis. And we also have started to shift a little bit of our fundraising focus relative to some of the businesses that are the biggest contributors on an annual basis. I'll use Barnes & Noble, the Yukon bookstore as an example. So rather than soliciting Barnes & Noble on an event to event basis or on an as needed basis, what we have done is they were giving anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a year. We reached out to Barnes & Noble and said, how about you just give us $5,000 right at the beginning of the year? We won't come to you for the festival. We won't come to you for movie night. We won't come to you for anything specific. You donate the money. And again, if you have areas of interest that you would like funding dedicated to, or you would like to be recognized as an association with, fantastic. But I think for Denise, certainly as an event focused person on the staff, for Kathleen and for Cynthia and Josh, as they're all going through their day-to-day tasks, it's certainly nice to know at the beginning of the year that we don't have to reach out and do a GoFundMe or a bake sale every single time we want to host an event. We are collecting dedicated funding, and the conversation isn't about, hey, how about this year? Would you like to give us money? It's how about on an annual basis that you provide some funding to us. So far those conversations have gone very well. Cynthia and I have had a delayed meeting with T-Mobile, who has showed an increased interest in getting involved and contributing. So, certainly we have some fantastic contributors that continue to be, but certainly I think that has been, at least to this point, the primary focus of the sustainable funding group as we have worked forward. So I will turn it over to Sean to give us an update on his working group.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. So we've met, our working group is the Public Promotion Public Spaces Working Group. We've worked over the course of several meetings and brainstorming exercise to come up with several initiatives that tie back to the strategic plan. We're now at the point with the majority of our working groups work concluding, prioritizing and looking at monies that are available for specifically for promotion and public spaces that we can hit the ground running and implementing the strategic plan. In fact, we met, not the working group, but Cynthia, myself, and Kyle met shortly before this meeting to talk about how best to do that and to review the monies available. And in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting back together, involve the executive committee, and start to kick off how we make sure we're good with those allocations and prioritization, go back to the working group, make sure they're good with it, and start to do some of the things. As one example that came out of our sessions that ties back to the strategic plan, and specifically physical improvements to Betsy Patterson Square. We're looking at how to give it more life, give it a little more, create a maintenance plan that involves perhaps the repairs or replacements of furnishings that have been well loved and used over the years, and perhaps even introduce some new features to give it some life, such as outdoor games. So anyway, without belaboring the points too much, there's a lot more to come, but I want to thank the working group members on this call that have helped over the course of those 6 or so meetings the past few months.
Thanks, Sean. Steve?
Sure. So I'm part of the business owner, property owner engagement group. We had 3 strategies we were working on. One was to work on quarterly property owner engagement, which Kyle has been doing a great job of, and he mentioned a lot of that work earlier. We had a great call with Larissa, I think it was last month, when we discussed how a tenanting strategy might work and how we might be able to facilitate doing that. So we've been working on that. And then our big milestone or achievement, I would say, was we held a mixer to enhance downtown business communication and networking. We held it at Hops 44. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 attendees, so it was very, very well attended. Everybody seemed to have a great time. Everybody was intermingling and networking and meeting people they hadn't seen or hadn't ever met before, and seeing people they hadn't seen in a while. So that seemed to be really well. And then we got a bunch of feedback out of that in terms of possible things for action items or consideration. And it just kind of, reconnected all those relationships that we weren't able to continue during COVID. So it was a really nice event. So now we're looking at when our next one might be and where and who would be on the list. So that's the short and quick version.
Thanks, Steve. And just for from an awareness standpoint for the group, Cynthia and I did have a follow-up. We do have regular meetings with the property owners, more regular with some than others. And we shared some of the feedback, which, I think for those of us in that working group understood it to be, a lot of the feedback was sharing some concern about the lack of engagement among the property owners in the town, in the space. Obviously concerns about vacancies and what the plans are. So, I know that Steve and the working group really are working hard to, and with Larissa to come up with some plans. And, we know that the property owners understand that there's a lot of work to be done. So, certainly if anyone on the board has any questions about those conversations that Cynthia and I have on a regular basis with those property owners, please don't hesitate to reach out, on a one-on-one basis. Certainly those are probably easier conversations to have one-on-one than they would be in a formal board setting. So, and with that, Larissa, I'm going to turn it over to you. I hope that Cynthia has set up sharing capabilities, because I'm sure you have a lot of flashy stuff you're going to show us. That's going to dazzle everyone. And but Larissa and Joe, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think those are really good summaries, most of which I've captured in the slides that we'll talk about. But first, and before I go there, I wanted to, I don't know if everybody I haven't had a chance to meet everybody. So just I'm Larissa Ortiz. I'm the managing director of the public nonprofits solutions team at StreetSense. We're a design and real estate strategy consultancy based in DC. Joe and I are actually based in New York, and we focus exclusively on downtowns and business improvement districts and economic development strategies. So just to set the stage and for some table setting, we completed our strategic plan, and and the way that this was structured was that we would remain engaged, and the idea was 6 months later, we would come back and have an opportunity to provide some feedback. And if there are any mid-course corrections that were necessary, we would be here and available to provide some technical assistance to support that. So, what I'm going to walk through is the result of 3 conversations with the 3 committees actually you just heard from right now. So sustainable funding, promotion, public space, and property and business owner engagement. And what we did through our conversations is sort of receive some of the updates you heard, memorialize those, here where there might be needs and slight changes and tweaks to the strategic plan. And we really do believe strategic plans are not concrete set in stone documents. They are living documents, and that's what we're excited that you're treating it that way. And so we've given you some thinking on how we might want to evolve and update the strategic plan. And so this conversation is to bring you up to speed on what we think some of those changes might be, so that the document itself can be updated, and the presentation we have now would be an addendum to that. So let me pull this up now. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, Larissa.
Okay.
Blank right now.
Well, my computer has decided not to respond to me. 1 second. We do have a backup strategy. Joe, if you could try.
Yeah, I think it's saying Larissa has started sharing. So if you want to exit out and try again, if
Yeah.
not, I can pull it up.
I'm having some trouble. I'm quite frozen, actually, my whole computer.
I mean, I have it on my desktop, Larissa. Let me see if I can.
Yeah. Well, including Control Alt Delete, which is, there we go.
And Kathleen says she can share it if we need her to.
Yeah,
So
we
maybe I'll
have
let
a number of people who can share.
There we go.
Okay. Is it, are you viewing it now? Or
See it now.
you can see it now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Okay, and you can see it full screen mode?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So to summarize what it is that you just heard from each of your committee chairs, we wanted to give you a status update on where we stood with some of the elements of the strategy. So, as Kyle mentioned, the exploration of funding options with larger donors has moved away from this event funding to something that's more sustainable on a yearly basis, on a multi-year basis, from a variety of stakeholders. And there's been a lot of, number of success stories. And in particular, we want to say with Park and Oak Tree that they have increased their commitment substantially. So I think that's a really positive outcome. The strategy for property owner
and business owner engagement. As you heard, the Hops 44 event was really well received. And as part of our discussion, we began to talk about how we might want to look at tiers for sponsorship. And also, in particular, one issue that came up is really helping the organization better understand its existing donors and manage through some sort of CRM software, customer relationship management software, the information that you have now. So, being able to go back to look at who's donated in the past, what they've donated in the past, the inability to do that easily right now is hampering some of your funding efforts. So as part of that exercise, I'm going to share with you some examples of potential software that we discussed looking at, and so some of the things that I'll be sharing some case studies in a moment. So the 4 updates to the plan, or I should say the 4 elements that came out of our conversation, we split these up into elements that are sort of remaining the same, elements that are new based on the conversation we have, and elements that reflect a change in focus. And so that's what you'll see on that status column here. So, we through the conversation, I think you might be aware that the Business Digest was sort of reinvigorated, and we thought that was really exciting way to leverage more readership and engagement with the community. So, that the Business Digest we thought was continues. We want to support that. And we actually see new ways to be able to use that, which I'll go into in a moment. We discussed the exploration of some additional communication tools, specifically a Facebook group, potentially WhatsApp, and improving the Mansfield Partnership website and the landing page that's specific for businesses. You did a very good job during COVID providing information to businesses, and so we want to reinforce that would be, an additional element to consider moving forward. The third, which was related to the CRM software that we mentioned, is really developing donor list and reevaluating your sponsorship approach and using the CRM software, which we'll talk about in a moment. And then the last, which came out of our conversation, was really thinking through potentially a new resident welcome packet as a way to introduce businesses to, your ever-changing, new residents and new students. And do have a guide right now, Explore Our Town guide, which was, Cindy, you had mentioned to me that was more along the lines of business recruitment, but we think that could be used as a baseline for something that gets sent to, evolved, changed, and sent to all new residents as something to consider for this group. There are 3 CRM management databases that we did some research in terms of what is being used and what's sort of affordable and in the market, within economic development organizations and business improvement districts. And so, we wanted to suggest looking into Neon, HubSpot, and Downtown Diva, and Downtown Worcester, Mass. BID is one example of an organization that uses Downtown Diva, and you can see some of the elements on the right here. So for the committee, this is sort of useful for the committee as you think about next steps and opportunities to potentially reinforce and support your sponsorship efforts. And then just to drill down on the new resident welcome packet, there are other communities that do this. This is sort of a common thing. And I will say that the United States Postal Service, you may or may not be aware, they publish on a regular basis change of address updates that are very popular to be able to pull. And these informational packets to new residents can actually be really great fundraisers, because businesses recognize there's real value in getting in front of new residents So it could be a way to raise resources at the same time by providing marketing for businesses. And, you know, this is where we thought there's a real opportunity to have something like this remain really evergreen, which is, you know, it remains valuable. It's an online resource that can align with your website and your landing page for businesses and residents. So I will stop there and just take comments or questions on this before moving on to the next committee. And what I'll do is I'll leave this up as you think about the recommended updates to the strategic plan. Are we in consensus that this makes sense? Is there anything here that's missing or needs to be updated? Is this the right sort of mid-course correction at this stage?
Kyle's not calling on me, so I'm just going to talk. Larissa, thank you. And thanks for your team's efforts throughout the course of, gosh, how many months has it been? But we really appreciate all the good work that you've done. And thanks for benchmarking this for us. I have a question as it relates to the second bullet. As we look forward, do we think that Facebook is the right platform for our audience? Or should we be concentrating even more efforts on other platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer, you know, depends a lot on your businesses. And the reason why, you know, we offer this is actually part of the discussion we had during the conversation. You know, small businesses, especially if they're older business owners, sometimes aren't using the more common or, you know, the more up-to-date social media platforms. You know, so the question is, how are businesses communicating? What tools are most useful for them? So we have found that particularly when you have a lot of smaller business owners who maybe are a little older, and older, I mean, like, you know, not 20 or 30, right? You know, they are using Facebook, and that's really common and useful and easy. WhatsApp is a great option for businesses that, you know, where they're on their phone all the time, and that's been very successful. And then, you know, the website is a little more static, but, you know, could be useful for information. So I would say, you know, we mention those and we talk through when they're appropriate, and some of the question is back to you. You know, what would gain the most support and usage by your businesses? And so that was sort of the open question that remains.
Thanks, Larissa. And I imagine there's analytics that could help us track that audience, right? On the back end, whether it be Facebook or other platforms that can tell us how successful our not our messaging is, but how it's being received and how many visits.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that we're not talking about something that's consumer facing. We're talking about something that's that helps your business owners communicate with one another and with you. So, you know, you're not talking about, you know, the kind of metrics that would be appropriate when you're talking about thousands and thousands of people in a market. You know, it's a much smaller subset of businesses. So it might be easier to track by asking.
Anybody else on this section? Great. Okay, Larissa, why don't you jump ahead?
Thank you. So the next, Sean, yeah, that's a good timing on promotion and public speech, is just summarizing some of what you said. I will add, you know, the exploration of temporary storefront activation was in the plan, and you know, the committee told us that they're already working to produce and working with the UConn School of Fine Arts for public displays in some of the vacant storefronts. So I thought that was fantastic. As you mentioned, continuing to generate activation options for Betsy Patterson Square. And also the phase 1 implementation of the signage plan was approved with $100,000 in capital funds. So, that's something that's in the works in terms of looking at improved gateway and landmark signs, particularly right at Betsy Patterson Square, so that and get a sense that there's more than just what's around the square. It also goes around the corner towards the back of the site. The 4 updates here, the stuff I'll start with what remains the same, which is green. It's exploring the signage at Betsy Patterson. The things that sort of remain the same, the physical improvements as well at Betsy Patterson. And then the new elements we discussed on our call, exploring the Curbless street, sorry, I should say dog lane. On dog lane, I want to share with you some options. Something at that time. This is much longer term, but we wanted to recommend that this continue to be part of the conversation, because the idea that you could expand the square and you have a lot more flexibility to do events of different sizes and scales by being able to close dog lane, we thought was continued to be valuable. And then last, exploring the addition of awnings to businesses and potentially supporting some funding for businesses. You've got wide sidewalks, your businesses are already putting up umbrellas. Awnings are actually a really wonderful way to encourage walkability, and especially as we have climate change and things are getting hotter and hotter, it makes the street much more comfortable. So something like retractable awnings, and we did look at your regulations, and there doesn't seem to be anything to prevent that. Storefront awning programs are fairly common among economic development organizations. They can be in the form of grants or loans. They can cover a portion, 50% or more in some cases is the average. And they often are designed to take into account the design guidelines that exist. So the kind of approval, anyone who walks through that process would know the guidelines, and you guys have fairly clear guidelines on your end. And then the next is the curbless street option. And the example we wanted to share with you is a community in New Jersey called Millburn, where you can see the previous images of the curbs on the street and what they've done. And actually this is done before COVID. They created a curbless street that during COVID turned into a phenomenal outdoor dining destination, so much so that they're keeping the street closed almost permanently now. But the flexibility of something like that, as you can see, it remains a street when it needs to be a street, but it really blurs the line between your public space and your sidewalk and your street. And so it's worth looking at things like this. Of course, it's much more capital intensive. It's it's longer term, but we wanted to leave it out there for discussion. So
Ron, did you have something you wanted to jump in on?
Yes, I apologize because somehow my connection has fallen short and I'm not able to see what's up there. But if you can see and hear me, I just want to mention that there are some deep concerns on the part of the Willowbrook community about the expansion of the square. I hope those concerns can be addressed, and I hope that we have a continuing dialogue with the Willowbrook Association to assure that what's done is done in a way that works for them as well as for the partnership and the community in general.
Sure. Is that could you in shorthand, the concerns are related to any closures that would make accessibility a challenge?
That would create a traffic pattern where people now are going up Dog Lane, but instead would go down Willowbrook Road, which is a very quiet street. And people would use that instead of going straight up to 195.
Yeah.
And when there are special events, we have no problem. When there are on an ongoing permanent basis, there would be significant concerns.
Got it. I think, that certainly did come up, and we were talking about something that was more about providing flexibility rather than a permanent closure.
Yeah. I know that there's a traffic study that would be part of whatever is done, and I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah. So just your sense on the recommended updates to the strategic plan. Does this look about right? Are folks comfortable with this?
Look like any questions or any comments, so.
Okay. And the last is property and business owner engagement, and Steve, this was your committee. Really, we heard, you know, two components to this. The reevaluation of outreach to downtown business owners, some overlap with some other things we've talked about before, and particularly in terms of how you communicate with business owners and their concerns. I think that's ongoing. And I don't think that ever goes away. You always have to connect with business owners. So that was the conversation we had around the Facebook or WhatsApp, et cetera. You know, we did want to note that the Mansfield Town newsletter continues to go out every 2 months. We really believe strongly you should be using existing tools. You know, we don't want to create new ways to communicate. We want to improve the ways in which you already communicate. So the town newsletter is the tool that we see as being an opportunity to continue to engage and leverage. And then, you know, creating that more permanent platform for the communication between business owners that we discussed previously. So there's a lot of overlap with some of the previous tactics. But here on this, you know, increasing outreach, continuing the successful networking events that you had, using the newsletter to continue to provide outreach, increasing outreach to things like flyers, online platforms and radio advertisements, and then expanding and leveraging the partnership's dedicated landing page for businesses. We talked about making sure you know, you had a page where the bulletin and the archives of the bulletin landed, and updates that, you know, when you're going to have meetings, that becomes a real live page as opposed to a static place where people land with information, and that business owners know that if they have any questions about what's coming up for them and ways for them to engage, they can go to the website. You know, this is these are some examples. These are the WhatsApp and Facebook groups we wanted to share with you that I mentioned earlier. You know, I know that Facebook is sort of considered somewhat of an antiquated tool, but again, it's amazing. Business owners use it really frequently. It's probably one of the most used tools for business owner groups. And has remained so. We haven't seen anything really take its place because oftentimes business owners are a little older. And so I'll land here. You know, thoughts, feedback, do these updates to the strategic plan look about right? Is anything missing?
I think my question are these recommendations doable with the staff we have? I think that's a question for Cynthia.
So what Larissa is showing you and what we've been focused on with the working groups is the first tier of what was recommended by Larissa and her team in the strategic action plan. So I think one of the key things is partnering, and maybe the arts is a good example. So, you know, we're starting to work more closely with the School of Fine Arts. And so I guess the short answer is yes, I think it's doable. You know, some of these things, as Larissa noted, we're already doing, and we had even before the plan started, like the signage plan. So yeah, I think it's doable if we take it in small bites, and you know, the great effort to not try to do everything in the plan the first year was smart and helpful to staff, so that we didn't, I'm speaking for the four of us, that we didn't feel overly overwhelmed.
My second question is, are we seeing the results of the efforts we've done?
So I think, what we're hoping to communicate through this conversation is that, we have seen a number of successful outcomes. I think, we wanted to share what's been happening on the sustainable funding end of things, the success there, the outreach to businesses, I think are particularly successful. And the work is still some of the work is still in progress, obviously. Being able to fundraise more effectively using and adopting some sort of CRM software is sort of a next step. So, the dashboard at this time is inputs, what inputs have occurred. And I think, that the outcomes are some I think we can identify, but others are still to be determined.
Thank you.
And I think, Tony, and I haven't talked to Kyle about this, but what I would suggest, and Larissa and Joe, jump in, is, what we did when we went through the strategic plan process last time is, we would bring the implementation plan to the board meetings every meeting and do a quick check-in. I mean, we have the working groups that will work, and I know a couple of people I need to reach out to, Ron and Louie and their involvement and on partnership committees, so that we can do a check-in on where we are, kind of using the key that Larissa has: complete, in progress, not started, to kind of keep us all honest, as they say, I guess, if that's the best way to put it. But I mean, I'm very pleased with all the work that the working groups have done. I think that there's been some good progress. So I think just making it, an important part of our agenda every month will be key. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we can move on to the second tier.
Anybody else have any questions, comments for Larissa and the group while we're going through this? And Cynthia, the plan is to share this out to the group.
Yeah, so I will, I think there were just a couple of little tweaks, Larissa, maybe to just make on that Dog Lane Stores Road. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, but.
No, we caught it. I think, yeah, we'll fix that.
It's all good. It's all good. And then I'll share it out to the whole group, and we'll save that in, in our files, our computer files, so we have it.
Great. Okay, well, I think that's it for our friends from Street Sense.
Thank you very much.
You are excused from the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stay. Cynthia's executive director's report is typically riveting. So
well, I have COVID actually, so I'm a little tired at the moment. I think I'll go rest, but I want to thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful experience. You are a phenomenal board. I was so impressed with all three conversations I had with each of the committees, how everybody really, pulls up their shirt sleeves, engages, participates. I mean, Cynthia is phenomenal, but she's really good because she has so many of you supporting her and the rest of her team. So I really want to say it's been a wonderful experience.
well, thank you very much, Larissa and Joe and your whole team. We have appreciated it, and I'm sure you haven't heard the last of us.
Okay, great, Cynthia, we'll connect.
All right, hope you feel better.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Larissa. Thanks, Joe. All right, I teed you up, Cynthia.
Too much pressure.
Your executive director's report better be gangbusters today.
Oh boy, it will be dry, but we'll get through it. So Denise and I are still looking for volunteers for the partnership table. Frank has stepped up and he will be staffing the table from 2 to 4. So I need one other person from 2 to 4 and then 2 people from 4 to 6.
I'll jump into that 2 to 4 with Frank. We did
All
that.
right, tag team again. All right, that's
Well,
great.
as long as you guarantee a group picture that goes on the cover of the
That's Kathleen's fault.
no, it's no,
No, fault.
it's a, you know, it'll be a year-to-year checkpoint for Frank and I to make sure things are all still.
It's a great picture. So if others know, or just let me know if you can do that. I know several of you will be involved in other tables. And we do want to create some type of game or activity. I know that was some of the feedback. So if you have thoughts, let me know. If not, Denise will make something up for you. So just let us know, you know, in the next couple of weeks so we can figure out what we want to do to attract more people.
I think I'm gonna do the street card game where I try to hide the queen and people bet money, and so we could, like, that'll be part of the sustainable funding.
No.
If I can get good enough at it. I've got a lot of time to practice. I mean, we've got a month and a half, so we'll see. We'll work with Denise. We'll come up with we'll come up with something good.
All right, sounds great.
Are we allowed to do raffles for fundraising? Is that
No.
something that we can do? That's a no?
That's
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I'm just going to jump in. The booths
Sure.
are not for fundraising. So I know Kyle was joking there, but yeah, there's no money at the activity booth.
It's just a game of chance, Denise. It's not.
Depends how you word it, right?
Exactly.
It makes it worse, not better.
No, don't get us in trouble, Kyle.
We're fine. We're fine.
So yes, so then tomorrow night kicks off our first movie night. Denise has been doing a great job. Weather's looking a little better, so we're hoping that we can hold it Friday. Just a reminder that rain dates are the following, Wednesday, right, Denise? Wednesday. So we're excited to kick that off tomorrow, and thank you to many of you who are volunteering over the next 3 weeks. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of my economic development hat on, which obviously benefits the partnership too. So where we are with the signage plan that we talked about in our in Larissa's presentation and Sean's, is that we have most of the signs with our consultant team merge identified. And they are working on locations. So hopefully we'll get something from them in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to check in with them either Friday or Monday. So we're making steady progress there. And again, we've got about $100,000 allocated for the first year of implementation. So that will require a request for proposals that me working with the town team will likely put together. Hopefully, my goal is by fall to get that out so we can get some signs in place in the spring and summer. I haven't talked to Ryan in detail about that, but that's kind of the thinking on my end. And then on the local business relief program. So I think many of you know that the council approved several projects and programs with the American Rescue Plan Act funds. And a couple of months ago, or maybe it's just a few months ago, we sent out to our mailing list, our business list, through a press release, through the town newsletter, several avenues to so that businesses could apply for funding to assist them with the repercussions of COVID-19. So we had 21 eligible applications. So far, 15 have been approved. We have a couple where we're waiting for generally tax information or a letter of good standing from the Department of Revenue Services at the state. And then we had 7 of those were in the downtown. It was actually, I think, a good cross-section of businesses from all areas in Mansfield. There is some funding left over. So Ryan will be discussing that with the town council in terms of whether a second round is warranted. So we are also working on an agreement between the town and the businesses to allocate the funds. Most people requested the 10,000, which was kind of the cap. So I think it's a success story, and we'll just keep moving forward on that and hopefully get the funding out, you know, in the next month or so. I don't know, Ryan, if you wanted to add anything on that program.
Just to say, you know, as I think I said at the last EDC meeting, how much appreciation there is for the help from Cynthia and her staff, as well as the folks that volunteered to be part of the ad hoc committee that reviewed and kind of vetted each of the requests. I know Kathleen and Cynthia have received positive feedback from those businesses that are receiving funds. Folks seem really appreciative. And so that's obviously great to see that the program had, you know, the desired impact or benefit for those that are taking advantage of it. And as Cynthia said, we are mulling options for how to best utilize the portion of the funding, which is what, about $190,000, $180,000 that has not yet been committed to those that applied during the first wave. So I would say it's very successful.
And I think that's all I had, unless anybody has any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cynthia.
I have a question that's sort of irrelevant, but Cynthia, do you know whether the poorhouse on Route 32 is opened or closed?
It looks like Kathleen may know. I thought I saw a hand.
Yes, I spoke with the landlord recently. They are open, but on a limited schedule of only 2 days a week through the summer. The landlord expects them to open at a fuller schedule soon, probably when school begins.
Yeah, even during the school year, they were mostly only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday that I would see. So they're pretty limited. Great. Well, thanks, Cynthia and everyone. Move on to reports from committees. We've already touched on the working groups. Emily, anything with Celebrate Mansfield?
Yeah, so as Cynthia mentioned, we're still looking for volunteers from the board, but the committee has done a really wonderful job of recruiting area captains, and the volunteer recruitment has started. We'll be reaching out to student groups pretty soon to start getting volunteers from them. So we're really trying to hope to have kind of an organized volunteer crew along with more area captains. We did get approval to get some reusable bowls and plates to try out. And with that, we got approval from the middle school. We got approval from the Mansfield Food Services to use the middle school to wash those dishes. So we're excited to kind of try that program on a test basis for the Celebrate Mansfield, and then use volunteers to wash those on Saturday and Sunday after the festival. Sponsorship wise, Denise has done a really great job, and we are where we should be. So we're able to kind of move forward with the budget for the festival as planned. And booth recruitment is going really well. At the last meeting, I think we were up to 23 booths, but I'm sure that's much higher now, Denise. And we were still kind of looking for food booths. I think we had up to 9 applications for craft booths, so that was really going well. So we'll review those soon. And I'm told that the contract for the main act was done, but it hasn't been revealed yet who that is. So I'm hoping Kathleen will let it slip soon, because I'm interested to know who we're having. And Joshua's Trust was interested in having an electric car rally in either E.O. Smith or the School of Fine Arts. So that might be a new interesting addition to the lineup. So Denise, let me know if I missed anything. That was just kind of my highlights. Oh, we're going to have a scarecrow decorating contest, which I'm really excited to see. So that was a new fun idea that came up at the committee.
Fantastic. Thank you, Emily. I do not have any update. The executive committee did not meet. Tony, anything from Finance and Growth?
No, I don't believe we met either. Cynthia, have I forgotten something?
It's a slow month.
You're correct, Tony.
Good. It's always good when I don't remember a meeting and it didn't impact.
And Frank, we didn't meet, did we?
No, the governance committee did not meet in July, but if I could use the time just to reemphasize the festival and to get involved, because if there's one event that really sort of shows what we do as a board, this is it. And it gets so many people involved, and it's a good exposure for you if you're working the booth, just to see the other vendors, the townspeople. It's a very important activity for us, and I love to see 100% participation by all of us on that day in some form.
Absolutely, Frank. And I think for Colby and Rachel, I think the last year was the first festival that I was able to attend, and I was struck by the number of students that, either had an awareness of it or may have just stumbled on it, but certainly looked as if they were enjoying it. So, I think it's something, as you're all talking to your fellow classmates, whatever you can do to spread the word. It's a good way to spend hopefully a really, really nice Saturday afternoon during the fall in around campus. So last year we were blessed with good weather, and it was great. It was a really good day. So yeah, and I echo what Frank says. I think the more the merrier. Even if I remember Ryan came by with his family. Like that's, again, if you can't volunteer, but you can just stop by, that's whatever type of presence that you can have, I think is fantastic, and certainly bring a friend.
Last year, my stepson brought his great big dog, and who is an absolute star wherever she goes. And Tasha entertained quite a few young women.
Excellent. Okay, well, the next item on the agenda, in your packet, you'll see a plethora of correspondence and communications, as always, for your reading pleasure. And with that, I think we are at the end of our time together, unless anyone else has anything to add for the good of the order. If not, I will take a motion to adjourn. Brian.
I move we adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Tony and Brian first, Tony second, and we are adjourned. All in favor? Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Stay cool.
Thanks, man.
You too, Kyle.
Bye now.